welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today the rats are dancing at my feet. I'm riding a garbage truck through the streets, singing my song, and I'm ready to start the show. It's my big opening number.
That's right. It's quite a sight, ladies and gentlemen. Follow that.
I'm Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I am right behind Trevor. I'm trying not to step in any rats as we process down the street. So,
oh dear.
Hey, I'm Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. I don't want to talk rats, so I'll bring up another rodent encounter I had today. I had a chocolate bunny this morning, and I bit its butt.
Oh my goodness!
I'm a chocolate bunny butt biter.
Oh my!
I think that qualifies you as an actual monster.
And I'll take it, and I'll do it again, Michael. I will do it again.
Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And golly, I'm not a big chocolate bunny fan. I do, however, love the See's candied eggs that Trevor was nice enough to gift me for Easter.
See's, the LA institution.
What's in a See's chocolate egg?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Don.
Yeah.
The particular one that I got was Bordeaux, but I also like their, they have like a brown sugar. Is that right, Trevor?
So it's like a Bordeaux cream?
I think they just call it the butterscotch.
Butterscotch. Yeah, the Bordeaux cream, which is delicious.
That sounds fantastic.
Oh, it sounds fancy.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you as always to our patrons and partners.
Hell yeah.
We're getting to summer. We're counting down to Bigger Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Get some bear skin and save 15% off with promo code BigFatGayPod. They got some fun new underwear. They got some that are like watermelon themed, very sassy. Get a Big Fig mattress. Use our affiliate link and support the podcast that way. And You got your underwear, you got your bed. You're ready for some activities while we're on spring break. We're taking May off. We'll be back early June to ramp you up for Bigger Vegas.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Get ready to see us. If you're feeling like you're going to miss us during our break, you can join our Discord and chat with us and sign up for our newsletter and get some little updates, episode recaps. Well, I mean, I guess if you're checking the newsletter for episode recap stuff, you're not hearing this. It's kind of a Schrodinger's listener situation. But sign up for our newsletter, join our Discord.
To the Discorders, I just posted a little message for you in there while we're recording. So how about that for a behind the scenes?
Wow.
And just a special message to a listener who pointed out that this episode is dropping on his 40th birthday. So happy birthday, Guido Henry.
Yay!
Ooh, happy birthday.
Ooh, happy birthday.
What a wonderful thing to get to celebrate your birthday with us.
Yeah. And speaking of recent birthdays, okay, so as the music was playing, I realized it's actually quite a terrible segue. Stick with me now. Stick with me. The anniversary I was thinking of was not the birthday. It is in fact the shut up, Trevor. It is the 37th anniversary of our beloved Divine's passing, which is talked about in an article, which is our first pop culture subject.
And that's Divine from the famous movie Hairspray.
Yeah.
Yes. Divine of many John Waters movies.
Yes.
Famous / maybe infamous actor. But anyway, we're talking about an article in the Baltimore Fishbowl, which is perhaps the most adorable publication title I've ever heard of.
Well, of course it is.
It's 3 familiar faces from John Waters movies, Divine, Ricki Lake, and Mink are still making news in 2025.
And they are.
They sure are. I didn't realize that Netflix did live shows, actually live streamed.
It's a newer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Mulaney has a show that filmmaker John Waters was actually on, and he's defending Baltimore's honor, which I feel like is kind of valid. People I don't know a whole lot of people that sort of stick up for Baltimore.
No, they get trouble for the wooder. It's in the water, Michael. In the water.
Oh no! Look, there are dumb accents all across the United States. But we have a lot of cool news for each of them. I think top of the list, though, the most kind of pressing thing is that multi-talented playwright, director, actor, writer named Donnie Horn, creator of the off-Broadway show Make Me Gorgeous, has a new show called Dishin' with Divine. This is starring Josh Lamont, who's currently playing Stefan in Death Becomes Her on Broadway. So this is all really exciting.
Yeah, I should say it's very early days for the show. And what I find exciting about it is Divine had a line that he said at one point that, I'm not a drag queen. This is my work clothes.
Yeah.
And I never get into this unless people pay me. And it was a really clean break between this is what I do, but I don't consider myself a drag queen. And so the creator of this show really wanted to investigate that and talk about all the other things that Divine was when he wasn't being divine. And I feel like that's necessary because I can't even recall the man's name except as Divine.
Right.
That's really, he would not have liked that.
The name Divine eclipsed so much about his life. Yeah.
This is a show about that. And also it's very early days. It's just doing, I think, readings and maybe some backers auditions.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool because, again, like that focus on kind of the things that you might not already know about Divine, but also the fact that the playwright is a author, historian, LGBTQ leader, director, documentarian, activist, set designer, producer, founded Triangle Productions in Oregon in 1989. Like he's been doing these kinds of productions for forever. The organization is a nonprofit. They put together, he has 2 performing spaces and more than 40 books, plays, and musicals. Like this is such a good bit of press for somebody who's doing this kind of art, because I feel like we see productions like this dying left and right. In our current climate, the arts have been under a huge amount of strain. And so like they have a lot of pedigree in their space. This is based in Oregon, but being able to kind of boost this kind of show, I think is really super cool.
Now is the time to support the arts that you want to see survive.
Yeah. The article also then kind of goes on to talk about Ricki Lake and Mink. Ricki Lake was someone who lost their home in the recent wildfires in California, and she's kind of been documenting the process of grieving the loss and rebuilding with her husband.
Yeah.
She originated the part of Tracy Turnblatt in Hairspray.
Yes.
With the original.
She was the first Tracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's kind of significant here is while a lot of very rich people lost one of their many homes in the Pacific Palisades, for Ricki Lake, it's a little different because, she was discovered by John Waters. She's put in this film, and that was the start of her career. So it's not like she came from something. It's not like, she was in the business anyway. So this was huge.
And that was a fairly common occurrence for John Waters, who Trevor, Dan, and I actually got to see the John Waters exhibit in LA, which was super, super cool. And you learn a lot about how he would do his movies. I think maybe bar none, they're all set in Baltimore. And he frequently cast locals, people that he would find that he either knew already.
He loved big personalities.
Big personalities. Acting experience was not a requirement. Like if he thought that you could play that part and do it in a way that was unique, you were in.
Yeah, it's almost like that filmmaker thing of like, will someone watch you? Will someone watch this person? And the answer was yes.
I feel like his like cavalcade of characters is very much kind of like a bizarro Andy Warhol factory, because it's like just all these like just very interesting people,
to the point where like I've seen Mink, the actress he used that we talked about, like I've seen her show up in so many other non-John Waters projects, and I'm always like my brain goes to John Waters whenever I see her.
Another just cute thing, the article ends with they're talking about a new tavern that opened in Baltimore called Pink Flamingo. Which I think is like a very cute little like button for the article. Check it out.
So perhaps now is when we should call our eagle to take us to our next location.
Eagle, please.
Eagle, take us away. Fat Watch 2025.
I think this week it's a flamingo.
I'd like to point out that I'm getting a lot of eagle content in my social media now. And I'm not mad about it, but it is a little weird.
Well, today's Fat Watch, we get to bring you some good news. From Delaware Online,
yes,
we see that Delaware is introducing a new bill that prohibits body-based discrimination based on height and weight. We've discussed other places that have sort of started rolling these out. So Washington State has something similar to this.
Washington has one, but it's obesity as a disability.
But Michigan has one in place.
New York City passed an ordinance that prohibited height or weight discrimination.
So we've seen these productions go in one form or another in multiple cities across the country, but not necessarily broadly.
Very few,
but not broadly on any state level. So this could be a huge deal if it moves forward.
Yeah. This is Bill 115. It's currently in the House of Representatives, introduced very recently. So I'm super curious. So I guess the question is NAAFA able to support this in some way?
Yeah. So NAAFA is supporting it. They've kind of rolled it into their campaign for size freedom of organizing people to testify on behalf of the bill.
Nice.
So if you go to NAAFA's Campaign for Size Freedom website, you can sign the petition for the Campaign for Size Freedom. If you're in Delaware, they have a link for you to find your legislator, to contact them to say, hey, I want you to support this bill. And also, there's a lot of other states that have pending legislation. They have the information to contact your legislators as well. For those other states, New York State, Massachusetts, Minneapolis, New Jersey. I think also Vermont. It's very exciting. And I also am glad to see just new legislation being put forward, especially in these times. Because I'm going to admit that earlier this year, I'm like, well, I guess that's that on the Campaign for Size Freedom. Like, everything's on fire. All of the Justice League are dead, and Lex Luthor is president.
So as far as what happens next with this, the bill was introduced and assigned to the State House Administration Committee for further consideration. However, there's another bill, Senate Bill 78, sponsored by Laura Sturgeon, a Brandywine 100 West Democrat, which was introduced, which would also prohibit discrimination in schools and school districts based on aspects of a student's identity, including race, ethnicity, gender identity, and body size.
Yay!
So this is just like a whole flood of fantastic things.
I wanted to add this in there too. If you're wondering, so what does a law against size discrimination do? You think, well, is that just going to be like a law against bullying? That's not going to stop anybody. But the other thing it provides is, if you're a fat person and you're not being accommodated in a school setting, in some sort of courthouse, you have legal recourse to be accommodated.
Right.
Whereas before they could just say, well, you're too fat, too bad.
House Bill 115 specifically says height, weight, or body size in transportation, public accommodation, housing, commerce and trade, employment, jury selection, education, and public administration. I thought the jury selection thing was interesting just because that's not really something I would have thought of.
Yeah.
But that is huge. That is a really big deal. If you think about picking people for a jury and the case involves a person of size, that would be very interesting.
Yeah. So sign the petition if you haven't already. And when you sign the petition, you can also select to get notified if there is legislation that pops up in your state. And I don't know, as always, follow NAAFA on social media to stay informed.
Well, this brings us to our main topic, which has nothing to do with Delaware, but
back to Baltimore.
Back to Baltimore.
We're talking about Hairspray, the 2007 movie musical based on the stage play based on the film.
Yes.
Why were you drawn to this one, Trevor?
So Hairspray 2007 begat Hairspray, the stage musical, begat Hairspray 1988, and they're all different. It's interesting to look at each of them, but I picked the 2007 one because there were a couple things that kind of came up recently that I wanted to talk about on the podcast, but there wasn't really much to say. So there was a Vogue photo shoot with Gigi Hadid, and it was Hairspray inspired, and they did basically You Can't Stop the Beat from Hairspray with all thin dancers. And there's a lot to say there, but I didn't want to just be it's a very much oh, well, that really sucks.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. Basically, we're going to do a number from Hairspray, but we're going to leave out all the fat people.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like doing an all white production of The Wiz.
Yeah.
You know?
Or Hairspray.
Or Hairspray.
Or Hairspray, yeah.
Yeah.
There was also Nikki Blonsky, who plays Tracy Turnblad in the 2007 Hairspray movie musical, has been having a resurgence, both in kind of there was a drag brunch in Cathedral City. It was a drag bingo brunch thing that she showed up at, and it was a Hairspray theme, and she sang with some of the drag queens, and this drag brunch resurgence has led to some other work for her. I think all kind of in Cathedral City, Palm Springs area. She became the top seller on Cameo.
Yes.
Yeah. What happened was a bunch of like old cameos of hers started to go viral on TikTok.
Oh.
Cameo is a website where you can have different celebrities or influencers record a video message for you.
And apparently she was getting so many
requests.
There were so many requests that the ones that were going out were kind of let's say rushed and sort of very first take, and people were like, girl, like charge more.
Yeah.
Like get your numbers down so you can actually take some time with it.
Yeah, which she did. And then I think like, get that bread, get that hairspray bread.
Yep. I feel like the most obvious answer to the question of why Hairspray is because it's such a wonderfully fat-centered movie that really contextualizes it, not just in a way where it can be positive to be fat, but it can be joyous to be fat. It's a very good example of a movie where the issues of fatness are brought up without beating you to death about them, without flagellation, without pain and agony, just at every turn.
It's very joyful.
It's written to be a good time.
Yeah. And the lead character is confronted by these mean comments at multiple points of the movie. And the way she sort of champions through them, I found it very freeing and happy and enlightening for me.
Yeah.
And not only does she champion through them and kind of like doesn't take it on herself and she just sort of keeps being her and that's great. But also she, in being that kind of role model, she's able to help her mom, Edna, finally break out of her own, like she's basically imprisoned in her own home because she gained weight and then is terrified to leave so that people would see her.
Yeah, there's a line like, the neighbors haven't seen me since I was a size 10.
Yeah, the neighbors hadn't seen me since 1951.
Yeah,
it was like by the end of the movie, Edna has this big old brassy like breakout number in the finale of the movie. Yeah, because of how Tracy has been that model of confidence and accepting yourself.
Yeah.
I want to share one observation I made right off the bat with the movie, because I haven't seen this movie since maybe a year or two after it was in theaters. It's been a really long time.
It's almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
Hairspray came out in 2007 and the movie came out in 1988, and the movie is set in the 60s.
Yeah. There are even some jokes in there that like can be hard to get if you don't have any knowledge of that time period, One of the issues that I was looking for this time around was like, because it's been so long, I was like, how do they portray a fat person? And so I'm watching her go through her morning routine, and I see her go to the fridge, look in and shrug, and then grab the fruit and walk out the door. I'm like, okay, they're still making her eat, but it's fine. It's not a focus on that. But I was wrong. When she leaves the house, you do not see her eat. She gives it away.
Yeah, she gives it away.
And she feeds two other people or two other creatures in that opening sequence.
Yeah.
A human being and a rat, right? So this is a movie where the portrayal of the fat person not only doesn't show them eating themselves, it shows them nurturing other people right there, right up front. And I think it was a great intro to that character.
I agree. And I think the way they handle food is really pointed. There's a moment later where Tracy is really upset and she picks up something to eat and she's kind of looking at it like, I don't feel like it. Like normally, and it's this weird reversal of like, oh no, she's not stress eating. She's just hungry, but she's looking at it like, I don't really want this because I feel terrible. But then she eats it anyway because she's just enjoying it. And so it was this weird reversal of like, normally you would expect them to go, oh, she's upset, she's going to go stress eat now. And it's not really that.
Yeah, I think you said pointed, Michael. The food is the references to food are very pointed. And I love that they're from all sorts of different angles. So there is mom who absolutely if she's down emotionally, she's eating. But there's also Tracy, who's like, food is, I'm not supposed to eat this, but, I guess I'll pick the apple instead of what I really wanted, which is the reality for many, many, many people. And I think my favorite line, Trevor and I were laughing on the couch, where they're in Mr. Pinky's Hefty Hideaway.
Yes.
And of course, because of his clientele, he has platters of donuts. Which I gotta say, as someone who was deeply involved in girth and mirth, that was a huge deal for us, was that controversy of, are we going to have food at the event because our clientele likes food at the event, or are we like, we're not going to have food at the event? That's too cliched. But anyway, my favorite line was, the mom is negotiating as the agent with Mr. Pinky, and the mom says, go eat the donuts, kid.
Tracy, eat your donuts.
Tracy, you eat your donuts. Yeah,
I loved that line. I wrote that one down.
Like, I was kind of going back and forth on the inclusion of the donuts and that whole thing, but the added context of that being a discussion point for fat events, especially during that time and earlier, makes it interesting in that you are creating a safe space to eat the foods that you would otherwise be very, very judged for eating or would just avoid entirely.
Yeah, because I remember the donut thing in both versions of Hairspray. And I remember the original version more vividly. So I was like, what is it like in the 2007 one? And I just love the donut thing because I feel like food as joy in fat activist spaces is very much a thing. And I just love that in the clothing store where it's just like, we're going to get you looking fabulous. All the clothes are fun. It is the thing that stuck out from the original Hairspray that I couldn't remember was in the 2007 one, is in the Hefty Hideaway commercial. Mr. Pinky's like, fatty, 2x4 can't get through the restroom door. Come on down to Mr. Pinky's Hefty Hideaway.
Yeah.
So in watching this, I had this really strange sensation. And tell me what you guys think about this, because a lot of these things really fall into that gray area of like, are we cool with this? Are we not? Like, there's some stuff that could definitely bump people. And my observation that I got to about halfway through was this felt like a movie written, which it was, written by a not fat person using a lot of fat tropes, but in a way that was intended to celebrate fat people.
Yes.
So it has a little bit of this like from the outside in feeling, but not in an icky way, in a supportive way, but in a way that's also kind of like a little cartoonish because it's using these very over the top tropes that in a different context might actually be offensive.
You could make the point that the whole movie is about allyship in that respect.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a specific scene to try and walk through an issue I thought I was seeing and then had to reconsider a little bit. Tracy is in the record store dancing with the kids. Her mother gets a warning, like, Tracy's with these black kids dancing. You have to go rescue her. So she runs down to the store thinking that her daughter is in danger. Then she enters and she gets distracted by Motormouth and Mabel pointing out the snack spread. And so the first thing I thought when I watched the scene, I actually got a little offended by that. I think my child is in danger and you're going to distract me with some meat. But that's not what the scene's about, right? Like that's the thing, right? That's the action you're watching. But what you're actually seeing, and especially when you combine it with what happens after that scene, I'll get into that in a sec, it's the mother isn't afraid of being fat. The mother has sacrificed joy in her life. And her constant statements of like, oh, I can't be on TV yet looking like this. I have to lose weight. She has deferred her joy for a later time in her life at some point.
Well, when she's thin.
Right. And so what she's actually doing when she walks into that scene with her daughter is she's walking into a scene where she sees her daughter in a moment of joy and abandon. And what she's offered in that moment is not a snack. It's a chance to reconnect with her own joy in the manner that is in that scene. So she starts eating the food. And I'm going to say the reason why I support this is because once that cork is taken out and she has tasted joy again, she starts to flow in the movie. She goes back home. She wants to have sex with her husband again because she feels alive, which leads into another obstacle. But once I was able to recontextualize that, it was no longer the fat person gets distracted by a sandwich. It's a reconnection to the joy of life.
I think there's something else really important there, and that the food is also meant as a cultural exchange.
Yes.
Because it's like mom is all upset and Motormouth Mabel says, why don't you stay a while? Why don't you sample what we got? And there's this whole spread of ribs and cornbread and collard greens. And the mom's line is, oh, is that braised?
Yeah.
And it's great because it is sort of meant as this cultural exchange and this offering and partake.
And for me, I think even more, to put a finer point on it, food, if you talk to anybody who enjoys cooking food, the joy in it is in sharing it, in giving it to people that you care about. And that gesture extended to a stranger is a really just an open gesture of joy and love and welcoming. And while it could easily hit somebody watching it as, oh, of course, the fat person's going to eat fat food, I think Don's like exactly right. Like that's what that moment was supposed to be about.
Agreed. Yeah.
A moment that comes just shortly after that. I made a note of this. The first time we see Tracy eat, physically put food into her mouth, chew it and swallow it, is at the 45-minute point in the movie when she's sitting down and having a celebratory piece of pie with her mother, who has just changed into this outfit where she feels alive in. And I'm so happy that one, she's shown eating, right? She's shown eating something that is joyous, right? And the focus of that scene is not on them eating at all. If you weren't, I honestly think if I wasn't looking for them to be eating, I'm not sure if it would have registered to me that they were eating pie. It's just something they're doing in a moment of joy and celebration.
Exactly. They're sharing. Yeah. And there is another food thing. And I know we keep coming back to the food thing, but it's pointed, as Michael says.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Link, who is the heartthrob, is pining over the loss of Tracy through his own stupidity. And he is in her bedroom and he's looking at all the things and he's crying with the picture of her and he's crying with a picture of her on the bed and he's curled up on the bed crying over the picture and he finds a baby Ruth under the pillow. And then you're doing that thing again where Don's like, and then he starts using the candy bar as a microphone because he's singing about her. And then he fucking eats the candy bar. Slim, hot Link eats the candy bar because you know what? Sometimes a candy bar is just a candy bar.
Right.
And while you did notice he pulled it from under her pillow, if you weren't looking for it, you might not have noticed that it came from under her pillow because it's not focused on. It's just a little detail of the moment. It's not
that tight shot, candy bar under the pillow.
Yep. We're not punching the fat joke.
Nope.
It's there, but it's not turning her into a joke.
And that's kind of what I mean, where they're taking tropes and they're almost like repurposing them.
No, the candy bar thing was something I vividly remember from the movie. And so yesterday, my mom came over for Easter brunch and she told a story about my grandma taking away her Easter candy.
Oh, this is horrific.
And it was like it was a super fucked up story. And it's like, and mom's like, yeah, I had a really messed up childhood. And my mom is that era. And it just, I had a different context for that scene of the hidden candy bar and just thinking about once again, there's all the food stuff in the movie, but also just thinking of my mom's experience of being a chubby girl in the 60s who also like kind of had Tracy hair at one point. And that the way it is kind of a reveal of Tracy, but Link using it as a mic and then also in kind of like working through his feelings for Tracy and admitting his feelings for her. He mentions when he shows up at Tracy's that he's so upset he can't eat. And it's kind of a joke because like Edna's like, oh my God,
this is serious.
But that he is able through this like reveal love song, he is finally then he takes a bite, which is like, he also eats candy, but it is also him kind of like that it represents his feelings for Tracy, that like he's finally able to admit that.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to the idea of it being a joyful experience for him. It's not this like, guilt thing or something you do to like make you feel better when you're sad. It was like embracing her. And I also like what you said about your mom, because it makes I had this thought while I was watching the movie, which is that Tracy's mom, while she is experiencing a great deal of shame and like has that focus on food and what she should or shouldn't do or look like, she doesn't spill it out on Tracy.
Yeah.
It's her thing, but she says, eat your donuts, honey. Like she doesn't make Tracy feel judged or bad whatsoever, which is incredible.
She's not hardened into it. I remember when Tracy wants to do the audition, it's her mom that tries to shut her down. And when Tracy gets in, her mom has a line that I wrote down. Imagine my daughter, regular.
Yeah. I wrote that down.
She's going to be a regular on the show.
For me, it was more about the mother does have the same breaks that I think is a realistic take on motherhood in that situation. But what I love about the mom is that as soon as she sees her daughter making traction, 180, and she is on board. She is on board to make sure that her daughter has the best experience, to the point where she herself starts taking risks to improve her own life. And that I loved about that character.
So I feel like we're unpacking Edna.
Yeah.
But we need to unpack Edna as a fat suit.
Yeah, I was just going to say the elephant in the room, as it were.
Yeah. So in the original, Edna is played by Divine,
who is a very large drag queen.
Yes. Who I think is padded like for like bustier stuff, but also is just very large. And John Waters said that because it's like, oh, why cast Divine? Like, is it supposed to be a joke? He said it's a secret for the audience, that the audience knows, but the characters don't. And I was curious. I'm like, am I going to be bothered by the fat suit going back in? Because I feel like it is something that has really evolved for me since I first saw the movie. And I was kind of shocked at how much I was not bothered by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience.
I think it's a focus thing.
I thought John Travolta was absolutely charming. I mean, I may get flack for this, but I love the way they use the form, the body, the fat suit, as it were, to show off the curves and the sensuality. I mean, there is so much flirting that goes on from Edna to her husband, and so many little kittenish moves that Edna makes, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I get the representation issue attached to it. I absolutely do. And, it's a great role that a big woman will not get to play because of tradition.
Because historically, it's always played by a man.
Exactly. But it all comes back to the original role being played by Divine. It's so tied to that character. I have a hard time imagining it not being played by a drag queen. I'm older. I'm curious if a younger audience that doesn't have the connection to the history of it would feel the same way.
Something that I think is worth pointing out, because this is like, the movie adaptation of the musical. In the musical, Tracy and Edna it's usually fat actors, but very frequently the actors end up needing fat suits or padding because, especially like in the run up to the show, they will end up losing weight.
Yeah.
Because of the dancing and the costumes. And I think even in the initial run of the show, Edna had padding just for, breasts and, kind of, shape foam for the female form. And it's like, I guess I'm less bothered if it is a fat person with padding for continuity.
Well, and I also think it's important to see that it's not making fun of fat people any more than having a man play the role is making fun of women.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it, is that the fat suit is not played up for jokes.
No.
At any point. The fat suit allows that actor to play that character in the way the character is meant to be portrayed.
Yeah, the same as Mrs. Doubtfire or any number of roles.
Yeah, compare that to most of the other fat suit movies we see where the object is spectacle.
Yeah.
And that's very different.
I'll just put on the end here of this particular subject that I do wonder how much fun that role could be with a fat man playing the part. Like, I don't think the suit is problematic in this movie the way that it is in a lot of movies, but it does still represent that a not fat person took a role for a fat person.
Oh, true.
And I don't think there's any real getting around that. That said, I think the implementation of it in the movie itself is, as we've said, like, perfectly fine and even a good thing.
Yeah, because every Edna in the musical on stage was a fat male actor.
Yeah.
There is one other thing that I want to make sure we touch on before we get too far away.
This is.
Is that Tracy's dad?
Yes, I
would like to touch on that.
I want the Chaser's perspective first.
I do too.
I loved Christopher Walken in this. Absolutely loved it.
Is he doing a bit like, is he actually like that? You know, the whole Walken impression that he's like so like he's got his like weird delivery of lines and he's got all his little mannerisms and stuff.
I actually saw a recent interview from a director who directed him. And he said, what I love about working with Christopher Walken is he will give me, if we do 6 takes, he will give me 6 completely different takes and I just have to choose one. So I think the director absolutely got what the director wanted.
Yeah.
And I think what I love so much about, is it Wilbur?
Wilbur.
For those of you who missed the point in the movie, let's bring people up to speed.
Sure.
When he's confronted about his feelings about Tracy's mom, he says very explicitly, I've never known love under size 60.
Yeah, 60.
He is very explicit about his attraction to his wife for the body she has. You know,
which look, as a chubby chaser, I consider a triumph because we are so often absolutely vilified, made into monsters because any sensible man would completely ignore the person's size. And you like it? How disgusting. And so I absolutely love that he is in love with his wife. He gets seduced by the hottest woman in the movie and he is oblivious to it.
I was going to say that specifically is what I appreciate, that it wasn't that he is actually tempted by this other quote unquote hot, thin woman. He doesn't get it at all because he's not even thinking about her like that, which is so real.
So I had, a new layer for that like I thought of especially in that scene. Cause so Wilbur has the Hardy Har Hut, his joke shop. And like that is his life, is this joke shop. And he's being seduced and he's just like pulling out all these things. And I was like, I don't think this is actually the case because it's like 2007 and I don't think there was that much layers to things. So I'm like, but is Wilbur neurodivergent in some form? Because he is just
are you kidding?
He is just like,
you need to ask.
Does that mean your answer is yes, Michael?
Yeah, come on.
And he's just explains Christopher Walken's takes, right?
Yeah, no, it's a pitch perfect performance. Yeah, it's fun, it's joyous. He does, and I like that the way he diffuses the like kind of affair fakery because he doesn't do anything, but it's sort of set up to look that way. And finally gets to sit down in front of Edna because she's upset, and finally gets in with Nikki's help, and he just kind of looks at her and he's like, "Come on."
When have I ever looked at another woman?
When have I ever? And it's so honest. And you kind of get this moment where all he really needs to do is just be back with her.
Yeah.
And I feel like that it shows the strength of their relationship, but also shows how cheap the attempt was to get between them.
Oh, that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah,
yes. It really underscores that. I love that.
So something that I went into the movie with ready to kind of like really have to, diffuse more or be confronted by more. So this is a movie that is almost 20 years old, and it is a remake of a movie that is 20 years older than that, about race relations in Baltimore in the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And we're coming at it with a very modern perspective, and it is even it is better than I thought, but it is still very much the white savior thing.
There is, it does need acknowledging.
But it was not as bad as I thought. And the movie, 2007 movie, tweaks stuff. I think there's also just a lot of stuff that is like very John Waters, that they're like, people on Broadway aren't good. They don't want to see the cockroach dress. They don't, it is too dangerous to have exploding wigs. You know, there's a lot of like fun stuff that's very John Waters that is not in, but I was like, what is it going to be like going back to this movie in 2025? And I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I'm like, I was expecting it to be far worse.
I'd agree.
Well, this is why I keep going back to that idea of allyship, because yes, you do have a white protagonist and there is the danger of the white savior disease. But I will say, what they really do, they platform, because Tracy doesn't win the dance off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who wins it is little Inez. And yes, we then cut to a scene of Tracy and Link kissing, but it's little Inez who wears the crown. For example, Tracy says, we're going to march. But Tracy's not leading that march.
No, but
Motormouth Mabel's leading that march, and Motormouth Mabel's organizing that march.
Tracy hits a cop,
and Tracy hits a cop.
When people start getting arrested, she's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here."
Yeah, that was weird.
That was such the white privilege moment.
That is the fastest that girl has ever run. They start and it was like, I think that's appropriate because I feel like very kind of true to form that she's like, hey, fuck you cops. And then it's like, we're going to arrest you. And she's like, bye.
Just as an aside, I feel like every minority guy has been in a car that's been pulled over with a white friend who does something like that during the pullover. You're like, just shut up.
I kind of want to acknowledge, like, there are things in the movie that are, I think, given that we're watching it with a modern lens, like they are still problematic. And I think there are also things that the point is really supposed to be about allyship and about how we can work together to get to where, we're trying to get to. I think there's a lot of like the white writer wrote the black people to just kind of joyously give their dances.
Yeah, like
to Tracy,
take my dance, Tracy.
And they're totally cool with it. And like there's a lot of stuff like that kind of just facilitates the plot that feels icky when you watch it. And again, with a modern context. But I think at the end of the day, it still holds up on the whole. And like, for instance, this is not about race, but we went back and watched The Ritz a few years ago and kind of like, okay, well, early portrayal of a chubby chaser. What's this about? And it no hold up. So it could have been worse is what I'm saying. It feels like it could have been a lot worse, and it's still trying to be and do a good thing.
Well, and I think what really works and why it holds up is because they're looking at a broad spectrum of othering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people living with othering in this very specific time in Baltimore. And it is still like, I don't know, cleaned up like racism, because I think it would just be too upsetting otherwise, especially in a musical
because it's a happy, peppy Broadway musical. Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. I remember seeing this when it came out, and I remember it was like my senior year, and like, I love the opening numbers so much. I mean, that's what kind of my intro thing is, because like you're just a fat kid and you're going out and you are othered. So you're dancing with the rats. You are friends with the drunk and the streaker. That's who you greet. And you are friends with the garbage man who is going to take you to school like a queen riding the truck. And then there's this moment that I don't think I really got and like really felt or noticed last time. The garbage man looking at her as she goes to school. And like, it is this, like, that actor, that extra, like that guy who gets just that moment. He acted the shit out of that little, like, 30-second scene.
I remember him.
Tears in his eyes, smiling like, that is the most beautiful, wonderful girl in the world.
Yeah. No, it's almost like the Disney Cinderella, where like everybody shits on her except the animals of the forest.
Do we have a tip today, Trevor?
I know my tip is, if you listen to this episode without watching, go watch Hairspray. You can watch it for free on YouTube.
Yeah, it's free. You can just go watch
legally
it. Legally
free. It's
no
not
commercials.
Like,
also,
it's not backwards and like in the corner of the screen with like a weird white wave to not get picked up. It is legit.
It's like an actual proper version of the movie. Yeah. All right. How about a bit?
Well, a few years back, there was a quick trend on the internet where people started competing to come up with the worst while still accurate descriptions of movies they could manage.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, I came up with a description of Hairspray. A former beauty queen tries to defend the moral values she upholds when the changing values threaten the TV show she loves. So I've got a list of a few different movie descriptions here, and I'm hoping the three of you can figure out which movies we've got.
Okay.
I've got some varying levels of difficulty here. Let's see how you do. Our first one. A magical animal lover tries to recover her sister's property from the climate refugee who murdered her.
Buzz.
Trevor.
Wizard of Oz.
That is correct. All right.
I'm going to be really bad at this.
I was going to say Wicked, but all I could have in my head was The Wiz.
All right. A 4F weakling takes performance-enhancing drugs in order to get into the army, but they still won't give him a gun. Dan.
Captain America?
That is correct. All right. Our next one. A speech-impaired alien and two monks attempt to acquire a young boy on a bet.
I don't know this movie.
Is this like something we would really know?
Yes, you will absolutely know this.
Alien and two monks.
You had me until boy.
The monks, I feel like, is kind of throwing me because I'm trying
I got the monks, but no boy.
I can give you an additional tip on this one.
Okay.
They attempt to acquire the boy by forcing him to perform the task that might get him freed. And he says, yippee.
Oh, Buzz.
Michael,
God, the Phantom Menace.
That is correct. Episode 1 of Star Wars, The Phantom Menace.
Oh, Yoda.
Please, you tried to forget that movie.
You know what's hilarious about that? You know what got it for me?
Yeah.
Yippee.
Yep.
Really?
That's what did
Yippee
it.
is
That's
burned into my memory. My entire being revolted at that. All right. Our next movie description: a very elderly visitor tries to blend in with the crew of a research base, but finds attempts to become one of the guys is met with increasingly violent resistance.
Buzz, The Thing?
The Thing is correct.
Turns out I am good at this.
Never seen it.
All right. Oh, Dan, one of the best horror movies of all time. All right.
Yeah.
The Thing.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason.
Our last one for the day. A rambunctious extraterrestrial child invites itself aboard a human cargo ship.
Buzz.
A memorable game of hide and seek follows.
Buzz.
Trevor.
Alien.
That is correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. That was fun. I kind of like those.
Yeah. Those are good.
So, Trevor, if any of our audience members have like really bad movie descriptions they'd like to share with us, where can they do that?
Well, we're on Instagram and Blue Sky as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars and a review on your preferred podcast platform. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles, sign up for our newsletter, or join our Discord at BigFatGayPod.com, a baby.
What's up?
Well, maybe you finally, at the end of this episode, have sprayed enough hairspray to tease your hair to the proper heights. But it's us. We're all little cockroaches in your hair, baby. So
good Lord.
watch out.